was perhaps missing. The intelligence lapse is one where the intelligence does not come at all. That is the failure of the intelligence setup. In this case, as you are putting it, the intelligence was available. So the response to the intelligence was perhaps not adequate. On the face of it, subject to correction because the investigations may reveal something. The Z plus security part which you asked earlier, that is meant for certain types of situations. A Z plus security person is guarded by about 30 odd men,
right?
Not at all times, and to be a way forward at all. However, you cannot discount the importance of having some kind of communication channels open with them. And it is here that various NGOs and human rights groups and what have you come into play. And I think all of them have a role in addressing this problem. Simply by talking to them, things might not work out. It has to be one of the modes of an approach. And gradually, I think there would be localized personalities, maybe not on a national level, a single name, but area-wise, there would be people who can act as track two interlocutors between the administration and the local Naxal units. That would be a way to go forward, and that I would recommend strongly.
But has that been tried before, the interlocutors?
It is being tried in a disorganized manner, depending on the initiatives of the local administrators and the local police officers. But it has to be intensified. It has to be made a little more result-oriented, and for that, the local administration perhaps needs to have much greater discretion available at its command to be able to deliver something which is symbolic, at least, of our intentions. So talking and track two both are important. At the same time, I would re-emphasize that the strategy of development coupled with security cover has to be pushed seriously, and it is necessary to examine what are the impediments.
Again, talking about negotiations with the Naxals, Mr. Bansal says our past experience hasn't been that pleasant. They use this opportunity sometimes to regroup and consolidate themselves. What do you think is the way forward then?
You know, I don't think that we are completely failed. I mean, if you see the data, I mean, the graph is going down. I mean, what exactly happened in 2006, 2007, 2008, what exactly happened in 2012. The graph is going down. This time the Saturday incidents actually they were targeting one single person.
Okay.
165 districts are Naxal affected districts. 20 states are Naxal affected districts. So we need to take it very seriously now. Now things are, and it seems that the way the political class need BJP or Congress or Communist Party, they reacted to this incidents. Yes, out of box, we need to think out of box, and then come together to solve this problem.
But Mr. Verma, clearly by attacking the political class, the Maoists are sending out a message that this is clearly a war against the country.
No, they don't say that. They don't. The procedures which the state has followed, which has caused so much of deprivation to them all these years. If you remove those deprivations and make them stakeholders in the power complex of the country, their grievances will mainly disappear.
And would you also think that Saturday's attack decision, they use this period of lull to plan an attack of this kind?
You see, most Naxal attacks are very well planned. In fact, if not all. So I would not credit this attack with any special planning. It is a very typical, an attack of which we have a large number of precedents. of a similar nature. Rest was collateral damage, because there have been reports that a large number of people were left after being caught by the Maoists, and in fact someone was given a painkiller injection or another person was given water to drink and so on. Otherwise, in a Naxal attack of that dimension, there is no possibility of escaping alive. The number 300, or it could be 500, is the usual size of an attack on a convoy. I mean, this is a convoy, it had some protection also, though minimal, and therefore they came well prepared. One other point which I would like to make is that Naxalism has to, if we really believe that it is a big threat, as it is, if we really want to address it in the way we proclaim whenever an attack of this type occurs, are we doing enough to, by way of various initiatives, to actually address the problem? Us on this, or perhaps what is out of bounds? We can identify those areas. We have to have a strict, strong and winning strategy being visualized by a certain section of people, because that will perhaps lead to the disruption of the state. If that be so, then if we are looking at all possible strategies and all possible methods, then we will have to also look at perhaps stronger, more effective measures in ensuring security. And that, as I mentioned in the passing earlier, should the inclusion of armed forces in a limited way be kept out of it? Why should we do that? Or should we do it? Should we, for instance, say no to any use of air power? These are issues which have to be discussed now in the light of the situation as it is emerging. How can we use more modern technology, rapid and efficient implementation? The big problem that we are facing is that we make a lot of very good plans.
Right.
I don't doubt their credibility, have to be included in our security-related approach to this problem. One last word of caution is that whatever the security establishment is doing should not find discussion in the public domain,
Right.
Not only in its nitty-gritty, but even in its principles. I think it is absolutely unnecessary. No one is wiser if he is told that we are going to use armored plated helicopter, and the information need not be turned at all.
But can that really happen in the age of 24/7 media, Mr. Mishra?
Very hard to say, but yeah, I mean, I was reading the report over there from Chhattisgarh. You know, our military forces, or the armed forces, they do not have even the very exact map of that particular area where
Right.
these incidents happen. So yes, we need to have the